guys. So previously we were looking at this question to do with smallpox and the eradication of smallpox and how it should be given more thought. Hopefully, guys, this one was an example where to literally show that these questions are doable. Hopefully, this one wasn't too difficult. If it was, hopefully my explanation made a lot of sense. So let's move on to the next question, guys. Let's read this together. Question 2. This says, one of the foolish but persisting fantasies of the Olympic movement is that the games are or were or will be or even ought to be completely free of politics. It is difficult to understand how this foolish belief continues, but the facts are these. The nations lining up to host the games are motivated not by unattainable ideals but by a legitimate desire to promote the excellence of their citizens. And the nations who have boycotted the games in the past have done so to make a genuine political point. Which of the following is a conclusion which can be drawn from the above passage? So, guys, pause the video, give yourself just over a minute, and come back, and we will be going through the solution then. So, guys, so we look at the question. We know it's a conclusion question, so now we put our conclusion cap on. Then we are going to go systematically, excuse me, you're going to go systematically through the sentences. So it says, one of the foolish but persisting fantasies of the Olympic movement is that the games are or will or were or will be or even ought to be completely free of politics. Right? So this is quite strong language. That's quite clearly an opinion, isn't it, guys? He's saying it's foolish. It's not a fact that it is a foolish thing to believe this fantasy, but this is what this person thinks. Someone else might think this is a perfectly good idea, right? But this is quite evidently an opinion. Although it's not really a super strong opinion where it's, saying you should do this, or he's just kind of putting his views out there. He's not forcing his views on to anyone, but he's just putting his views out there. So it's still an opinion. So it says, it is difficult to understand how this foolish belief continues, but the facts are these. So that's quite so, and then it says the nations lining up to host the games are motivated not by unattainable ideals, but by the legitimate desire to promote the excellence of their citizens. And the nations who have boycotted the games in the past have done so to make a genuine political point. So, although, guys, it says, but the facts are these, that's this probably talking about facts in his eyes. But either way, I hope you guys can appreciate that it's not, it's nowhere near as strong as what he was saying at the start. This is a foolish idea. Here he's kind of just saying. He's kind of just putting what most people would probably agree with, right? So the reason why people would want to host the game is to promote the excellence of their nations. So that's not really, it's not a fact, neither is it a strong opinion, but either way, we're going to cross it out. So we can cross all this out. Yep, so let's cross this out. Right, so then that means essentially what he's trying to say is that he's trying to say is that what we say. Let's read it again. So one of the foolish but persistent fantasies of the Olympic movement is that the games are or were or will be or ought to be completely free of politics. He's trying to say is that it's foolish to believe that the Olympics will be free of politics. Okay, so let's see which one essentially matches that the most. So it says A, although everyone knows the Olympics are called, no one is brave enough to admit it, right? So he's not even talking about anyone else in this paragraph, is he? He's mainly just talking about his own views. And nowhere does he say that people aren't brave enough to put their thoughts out there, right? So this is going to be incorrect. National interests are ruining the Olympics, right? Not really. He's kind of more saying that it's foolish to believe the Olympics will be free of politics. I probably don't think it's this, but I'm just going to put a question mark because at least it's stronger than the first one, maybe. And then it says, just because Olympic Games have been politicized, it doesn't mean that they should be, right? Yeah, so this one, so just because the Olympic Games have been politicized, it doesn't mean that they should. It doesn't mean that they should be. Again, I'm going to put a question mark here. We might want to consider this later on. And then it says, if some countries use the Olympic movement to further their own ends, they are guilty only of exposing a myth, right? So in this one, again, I'm just going to put a question mark. We'll come back to this one. And then the last one, we should do everything possible to show that Olympics do not become further politicized. It's not really that one's quite strong, isn't it? It's not really saying anything about you should do this or we should do that. He's just trying to put his views out there again, so it can't be this one. So let's just go back to the statements. If some countries use the Olympic movement to further their own, they are guilty only exposing myths. So he's trying to say that the Olympics would never be free of politics, right? Yes, I think that one probably is in my eyes, this one's probably going to be the most ideal, because he's trying to say that the Olympics, he's trying to say essentially the Olympics would never be free of politics, right? And then obviously, if countries use it to further their own ends, right, then they're basically just trying to show, they're just trying to expose themselves, and in showing that it is true that the Olympics would never be free of politics, if that makes sense. It's a bit of a weird one to answer, but I think D, in my eyes, would be the correct one. Let's see if we can knock out any of the other ones. So, national interests are ruining the Olympics. Um, this one, he's not really trying to say it's ruining Olympics. He's just saying that he's just making the point that the Olympics won't be free of politics. He's not saying it's ruining anything. He's just putting the point out there. So that's why I don't think it's unlikely to be this one. So just because Olympic Games have been politicized doesn't mean that they should be. Um, uh, it doesn't mean that they should be. So this one is a bit weird. Just because the Olympic Games have been, it doesn't mean that. So it doesn't mean that they should be. Yeah. So this one, um, I think what he's trying to say here is that they have been politicized, but it doesn't mean that. It's basically trying to say is that it's okay for it to be politicized. But that's obviously that's the opposite of what he's saying, isn't it? He's saying he's not he's not saying anything about like it's he's not saying anything. He's just literally making the point that it won't be free of politics. He's not talking about what it should be like or what it shouldn't be like. So that's why I don't think it's this one. And therefore, guys, hopefully by a process of elimination, at least you can figure out that D was probably the correct answer. I probably explained it, guys, in a weird way, but if you perhaps want further clarification, just comment down below and I'll be happy to answer any of your queries and perhaps think of a better way of explaining that. But hopefully, guys, that has made sense, and I look forward to seeing you in the next clip. Okay, guys, welcome back. So previously, we were looking at a bit of an awkward question, which was this question to do with the Olympics and it being free of politics. Hopefully, that has made sense, guys, at least via a process of elimination. And if not, guys, remember the use of procedure. Just comment down below, and we can go through that in another way to suit your own needs. But let's go now, guys, to the next question, which was question 3. And let's read this together. It says, the purpose of an election is to decide what policies are supported by the people. However, in the election, the concept of tactical voting is becoming increasingly common. The argument is a simple one. Party X will never be beaten by Party Y, but Party Z could win with a few extra votes. Therefore, you should transfer your vote from Party Y to Party Z to make sure that X is beaten. This reasoning is perfectly sound if your main objective is to vote a party out. Unfortunately, if you support Party Y, then there is no guarantee that Party Z would support the same principles. And says, which of the following is the conclusion that could be drawn from the above passage? So, guys, give yourself just over a minute, come back, and we shall be going through this. Okay, so let's go through this, guys. It says the purpose of an election is to decide what policies are supported by the people. So that one, I mean, it could be a opinion, but even if it is an opinion, it's quite weak because I think everyone would agree that is more or less the purpose of an election, isn't it? So this we can probably just cross out, really. Then the next one is, however, in elections, the concept of attack is becoming increasingly common. Again, this is, it might be increasingly common in their eyes, right? But it's either way, it's not really too much of a strong opinion anyway. But I'm gonna bracket it off anyway as the most opinionated so far. And then it says the argument is simple. So Party X will never be beaten by Party Y, but Party Z could win. So it's basically trying to say that Party X will never be beaten. So X would always be greater than Y, right? But Z could win. So Z might be greater, maybe, than X, right? Party X will never be beaten by Party Y, but Party Z could win with a few extra votes. Therefore, you should transfer your votes from Y. So basically, since Y is already going to lose more or less, you might as well put your transfer your vote from Y to Z to make sure that Z then is greater than X, to make sure that then X is beaten. So that's basically the principle there. So this is more or less, that's not really an opinion, isn't it? That's kind of stating what you should do if you want X to be beaten. So all of this, I think, would basically all be fact. So you can cross this all out. Then it says the reason is perfectly sound if your main objective is to vote a party out. right? So that's pretty evident, isn't it? So if you want to vote a party out, that is a sensible thing to do. That's more or less a fact, right? Unfortunately, if you support party Y, then there's no guarantee that Z will support the. Unfortunately, if you support party Y, then there's no guarantee that Z will support. Yeah, that's pretty factual, isn't it? That's not an opinion. That's actually true. So this is also going to be X'd out. So again, guys, here there's not really an evidently really strong even that one, tactical vote is becoming increasingly common. It probably might even be a fact. So there's not really a strong opinionated sentence there. So what we have to do here, guys, is just sort of read the statements out and look at which one fits what we're saying. Essentially, which one fits what we just read best. Essentially, so it says elections are often thought of in terms of voting for or against the party in office rather than voting for the preferred party. Yeah, I guess voting for against the party in office. Yeah, it doesn't really talk about the party in office, isn't it? It's just talking about parties in general. So I don't think probably not going to be this one. Tactical is an important is an important part of the electoral process. No, it's just saying that tactical voting is becoming increasingly common. It's not talking about its in importance. So this is probably not it. Tactical voting will not achieve the purpose of an election. Yeah, I think this is quite. I think this one's quite strong because at the end it says there's no guarantee that Z will support the same principles, right? So because and it's saying the purpose of election. So that also links the two ends and therefore the whole passage, isn't it? So it links the start part to this end part because at the start it says the purpose is to decide which policies are the best, but then at the end it's saying if you do tactical voting, you're not necessarily going to get what's best for you. Yeah, so this one I think is good so far. I'm going to bracket this off so far, and so it's important that party X does not win the election. Yeah, so nowhere does it say party X should win the election, and even then, that's not the main conclusion. That's just an example it's given, isn't it? Party X. So the person didn't write this for you to say for you to get out of it that party X shouldn't win. He wrote more about this idea of tactical voting. So this is probably not it. And party X policies are not popular. Nowhere does it say party X's policies are not popular. It just says that party. It just gives stats about party X would always be part of it, but it doesn't say anything about party X's policies being popular or not popular. So this is probably not the one. So therefore, guys, hopefully you can agree with me on this one that C is the right answer. So guys, hopefully that has made sense, and we move on to the next question, guys. Hopefully that one should be much better. So see you soon. Okay, guys, welcome back. So hopefully you're keeping well, firstly, and secondly, guys, hopefully you managed to solve this question or at least understand how I solved this question. It probably wasn't the hardest question we've seen, but still, I admit it might be a bit difficult for some of you. That's fine, guys. Remember, this is all part of the learning process. But now, guys, let's move on to the next question. And the next question is question 8. It says, despite much opposition to the idea, modern musical trends such as hip hop have a place in the world of opera. Traditional opera is a powerful musical experience. However, modern musicians should not necessarily stick with the traditional form. Modern musical forms which fuse stage drama, singing, and contemporary or ethnic trends in music are also powerful musical experiences. Uh, Glydenborn's youth opera Misper and Zoe and its Mozart hip opera um, School for Lovers enjoyed critical and box office success and attracted hip hop audiences. Moving away from the snobbery of tradition gives a much wider audience access to transformable music experience. Which of the following best expresses the main conclusion of the passage? So, guys, give yourself over a minute. You know the drill, and then come back once you're ready. So, guys, welcome back. Let's go through this. It says, despite much opposition to the idea, melodical music such as hip hop have a place in the world of opera. So that's their opinion, isn't it? So this, so far, is going to be the most opinionated sentence. Then it says, traditional opera is a powerful music experience. Right? Again, that's all still opinion, right? Probably as opinionated as the first one. So we can also just put this in the mix as well, I guess. And then it says, however, modern musicians should not necessarily stick with the traditional form. So hopefully, guys, with the practice we've done, you can see this is a much stronger opinion. It's telling you to do something. You shouldn't stick with the traditional form, right? So we can cross this out, guys, because we found a much more opinionated sentence. And that's so far, this guy wins, basically. Yeah. And then, so this is probably going to be of the structure, guys, where it gives the opinion at the start. Now it's just going to give reasons. So modern musical forms which fuse straight drama, singing, and contemporary or ethnic trends in music are also powerful musical experiences. Again, that's their opinion, but nowhere is not telling you, it's not forcing anything onto you. such as you shouldn't necessarily stick with this, is more lighter. So this one's, yes, is opinion, but it's a much lighter opinion. So we can cross this out. And then it says, Glydenborn's youth opera Mispa and Zoe and its Mozart hip opera School for Lovers enjoyed critical and boxes and attracted hip hop audiences. That's just factors. They're just stating the success they had and the audiences they attracted. So this we can just cross out. And then it says, guys, moving away from the snobbery of tradition gives a much wider audience access to transformative music. So that's their opinion, but again, they're not forcing anything onto you. So that's a much lighter opinion. So hopefully, guys, you can appreciate then that the main conclusion from what we, without looking at the answers, the main conclusion is that um, so modern opera musicians shouldn't necessarily stick with the traditional form, something along those lines. So let's look at the answer. So creating new operatic performances allow more people to access this exciting art form. Yeah, it's not really talking about creating. It's more talking about you should fuse the modern and the tradition, isn't it? It's not saying you should make more of this. If anything, it's saying you should make less of that and fuse it with the more modern thing and create new types of performances. So this is not going to be the one. And then it says contemporary music forms have a place in performances of opera. Contemporary meaning as in, like sort of newer music. I guess we can consider that. So we put that in so far. Yeah. And then musicians are entitled to fuse new forms and or to create exciting musical experiences. So the thing with this one is good, but remember, all of this is in terms of opera. And reading that statement, it doesn't clearly depict the purpose of the paragraph. The paragraph is not to do with any kind of music; it's specifically to do with opera music. So I don't like this one. I'm going to cross this one out. It says hipful is as powerful and dramatic as opera. I think it probably mentioned something there that it's powerful and stuff. But I just remember that's just talking about a specific part. Yeah, I think it says here traditional opera. Yeah, traditional. It says such as hip hop plays in the world of. It says modern trends such as hip hop have a place. Traditional opera is a powerful music experience, and then yeah, and then I think it does talk about and ethnic images are also powerful music experiences. There we go. So it does say they're powerful, but that's really talking about. So that's somewhere along in here. It's talking about these guys also being powerful, but that's just talking about a really particular part of the paragraph. So it can't be this one. And then contemporary music forms have a place in the contemporary music has a place in the musical world in addition to traditional operatic performances. I also like this one. So let's look at the difference. So contemporary music has a place in the musical world um, in addition to traditional operatic performances, or contemporary music forms have a place in performances. Yeah, I think that's the one. I think B is going to be my choice anyway. The reason why I say B because here it's saying, um, yeah, here it's saying more not get rid of the sort of tradition, but rather fuse the two things together. And I think B depicts that more. So contemporary music forms have a place in performance. So you should that's kind of stating that you should fuse them. Whereas the last option, it's saying you should have contemporary music on top of the opera. So that sounds more like you should have that and that, not fusing them. So that's why I like B better. So hopefully, guys, that's what I think. Hopefully that makes sense. And any comments, just comment down below, and hopefully we can see you again in the next clip. All right, guys. So welcome back. So previously we looked at this question to do with opera. This was of the type, remember, guys, that it was clearly evident we had the most opinionated sentence, which is that section, that part of the passage which has been bracketed off. But we were torn between two options, and I gave my reason why I picked B. I do think that was the correct answer. I did check it. That was the correct answer. So hopefully you guys agree. And if you're still confused why it's B and not E, comment down below and we can go through that. But now, guys, we're going to move on to this question 22. So let's read it together. So if for a number of hours each day you're having experiences on the computer where there are no consequences, that might have an implication for antisocial behavior. In real life, you can't undo something. You can't bring something back to life once you've stabbed them. On a computer, you can play the game again. It may be that for people who spend most of their time playing computer games involving killing others, real bleeding to death has no meaning. Studies of brain activity show that there is less prefrontal cortex activity in the brains of screen-obsessed teenagers than in the brains of those who spend little time on their computer games. The prefrontal cortex area of the brain is where we process ideas of sequence, consequences, and empathy. Which of the following can we draw as the conclusion of the passage above? So, guys, pause the video, give it a go, give yourself just over a minute, and make sure you come back to look through the solutions. So, guys, let's go through this. So it says, If for a number of hours each day you're having experiences on the computer where there are no consequences, that might have an implication for antisocial behavior. So this is more of his opinion, isn't it? He's not really saying you should think a certain way, so it's not really a super strong opinion, but I would probably say it's still an opinion. So it's basically trying to say if you play too much computer games, it might lead to long-term antisocial behavior. And this is in real life, you can't undo something. You can't bring someone back to your life once you stab them. That's clearly true, and that's clearly fact. There's no argument with that. Once you've stabbed someone, they're gone. So this is going to be X. So it says on a computer you can play the game again. I mean that's true, and that's a fact. So you can play games again. And then it might be that for people who spend most of their time playing computer games, going killing real bleeding to death has no meaning. Yeah, that's more that is an opinion. That is an opinion that he's saying that if you spend too much time on the computer, then real bleeding has no meaning. But probably isn't as strong as the first one, where he's literally trying to make a bold statement that if you play too much computer games, you're gonna long term have antisocial behavior, right? This is probably just an opinion he's giving within an opinion sort of thing. So probably not this. This probably not gonna beat that above opinion. Studies of brain activity show that there is, again, studies or research, that's a sign, that's a fact. Studies of brain show that there is less prefrontal activity in the brain of screeners than in brains of those who spend little time on the computer. So all of this, guys, um, all of this is going to be fact, right? Because it's real research. And is it the prefrontal areas of the brain is where we process ideas of sequence, consequence, and empathy. Yeah, so that's clearly all going to be fact. Right. So basically, this again is of the form where he says the opinion at the start and then he just fluffs it up with a load of evidence. So the conclusion then is basically saying if you spend too much time with the computer, long term you would have antisocial behaviors. So let's look at the option. Brain structure is altered by environmental factors. I mean, that is actually true in real life. But remember, guys, for with this exam, you're not meant to bring outside knowledge in. Only if it's not on the passage, it shouldn't be in the answer. So this can't be it. So the people who spend a lot of time playing computer are the main culprits in knife crime, right? So it doesn't really say anything about knife crime. It just talks about antisocial behaviors. You have to be really critical, guys, here, right? So you don't know if for this guy antisocial behavior means knife crime, right? You probably just extracted that antisocial behavior knife crime. That's kind of the same thing, but no, he's being really particular here. He's talking about antisocial behavior, so it can't be this one. There may be a link between the use of computer games and violence. We could question that, mark this off. We can come back to this, and then. But although it doesn't sound too strong, and it says young people cannot distinguish the difference between the fantasy and reality. Um, Firstly, I don't even think it talks about young people. It just talks about people who are on the computer a lot versus people who are not not on the computer much. So that I don't think that's re, a good option. Computer games should not be available for children under the age of 18. Firstly, it doesn't even state numbers in there. There's no mention of 18 years old, and nowhere does it make a bold statement like that. So I think then, guys, even though I question marked it off, I think C is clearly the other ones are most likely not going to be the answers, guys. So hopefully you can see then why C is the answer. There might be a link between computer games and violence. I mean, violence and antisocial behavior, that's more similar compared to antisocial behavior and knife crime in particular, right? So hopefully, guys, you can appreciate that C is the answer here. And again, guys, if there's anything confusing here, just drop a comment down below, and we can discuss your queries. So hope to see you in the next video, guys.